Plato once said, if you do not take an interest in the affairs of your government, then you are doomed to live under the rule of fools.
That is well said.
Indeed. Keep this in mind as we discuss today the election outcomes in Taiwan and how President Tsai had to resign the leadership of her party and what will all this means within the global context. My name is Dr. David Waralu.
And my name is Dr. Ross Stewart.
And you are watching Geopolitics in Conflict.
Polls have opened in Taiwan's local election.
Analysts say public discontent towards the ruling administration is the primary reason that the DPP could lose more than half of the 22 mayoral and county seats being contested.
Ahead of the polls, President Tsai Ing-Wen has framed these elections as being about sending a message that the public is standing for peace and stability in the island.
The world is random, meaningless, chaos. Or is it? How do some of the best, wealthiest, and most powerful people seem to know what's coming before it happens? Well, one way is that they create the circumstances in their favor, but the other is that they know how to read the world's stage and spot patterns and trends in key areas. They don't get lost in the overwhelm of endless information. They know what's important to pay attention to using their own formulas, and most importantly, they know where to put that information to actually make it usable. Would you like to be able to do the same thing? Well, we have a course that teaches you to do that exact same thing. It's called No Nonsense Politics. So if you want the leg up that some of the world's brightest have, as well as an online community of people who think for themselves just like you, check it out. Link in the description box below.
Times are changing very rapidly, David.
I know, I didn't see that one coming, Ross.
Well, 2020,
Yeah.
Tsai Ing-Wen won the leadership in Taiwan by a landslide. Because she was, from what we can tell, she was not doing so well until she developed the policy of, we are going to win our independence and we're going to stand firm against you. And she won this overwhelming victory.
You mean till she was advised to embark on that policy? That's basically what it is.
By an unknown foreign power. Well, the times have changed.
Well, indeed, Ross. I mean, as I said again, I didn't see it coming in a way that, by the way, she resigned the leadership, not the president. She's still the president till 2024, when Taiwan's going to run their presidential elections. But you have to read between the lines what the Taiwanese now are saying loud and clear.
Well, they're being hammered. For one thing, economically, they're being hurt.
Yeah.
Because mainland China is refraining from importing a lot of products from Taiwan that they used to import. That hurts them agriculturally, hurts them in other ways as well. And there's the constant threat of military intervention. Who wants to live with that?
Yeah, and this is basically what it was, the Taiwanese vote, because that's what it indicates. It indicates that between the 13 local councils, I believe.
Yeah.
That's where it was, and some mayors.
It was largely local
politics, yeah.
Local politics, but boy, did they show up and say, we have a very clear message. We don't like President Tsai's message.
Exactly, and this is a reflection of this. My question that I'm asking is, okay, what led to this quickly? And I am trying just to think outside the box. Are the Taiwanese watching what's going on in Ukraine? And they're saying to themselves, we better be smart about not embarking on a path like that. Or are the Taiwanese convinced that these tensions with China will have to stop because the tensions are created by the leadership, not the Taiwanese people?
A recent poll, and what do the Taiwanese people want? Peace and prosperity. How shocking is that? They don't want to be part of this international game of repression, of conflict, of threats of war.
Yeah.
They don't want any part of that.
Exactly. And this could also be an indication of the recent two major summits that took place in Asia. One in Cambodia,
Oh, yeah.
remember, the ASEAN, and the other one in Indonesia, in Bali, for G20.
Yes.
What these both forums had in common, they both strengthened their position as far as being neutral regarding US and China tensions. So the Taiwanese people read between the lines, because you got most of Asian nations there, it's kind of like, we don't want any conflicts in our neighborhood here. So the outcome of these elections, the local elections in Taiwan, is clear indication of that direction. And this is where I believe the Taiwanese wanted to send a clear message to the leadership. Now, we don't know how things are going to be in 2024, but at least for now, the world is breathing a sigh of relief.
Listening to President Tsai speak about this, because I watched several of her presentations, and she's doing something that I would term Newspeak.
Wow.
What this is this is how you can say emotionally charged words that have no meaning, but boy, are they designed to stir people up. But she's failed at it. Wow. And the people are no longer moved by her rhetoric of great peace and power for the Taiwanese people, and going, they don't buy it.
Yeah.
Her Newspeak is no longer effective.
Well, certainly the election outcomes is an indication of that. I am wondering now, I always like to think far ahead.
Oh, yeah.
What will she be thinking now that hypothetically in the presidential elections, she would lose that? Will she exile to Japan or the United States? What do you think, Ross?
I think we're going to see, she's going to be our neighbor.
It would be, there are some jokes like, she will be bunking with Nancy Pelosi in Florida.
Oh.
That's just a joke, Now, on a serious note, you'll think about in terms of what will have happened now, what will happen hypothetically if she loses the elections. Because now, to me, this is a writing on the wall for what lies ahead. The question that we need to ask, and you need to consider that question as well, is what will this do now to the relations between China and Taiwan? How Beijing will interpret this? Will the relations between the two take a backseat? When I say backseat, I am referring to less tensions. What will the West, mainly the United States, do now that this clear message came out? Will we see an uptick into the conflict? Or will the West say, what can we do now?
I hope it's the latter.
I hope so.
You take a look at this whole situation, and you go, why is this happening? From what we've been watching for the last few years, the situation between Taiwan and mainland China was pretty darn good. Yeah. Granted, they have this 1992 agreement of one China, two interpretations of
two systems. Yeah, you're right.
And it was working pretty well. Yeah. The amount of trade was going on back and forth.
Yeah.
And as I talked to people from Taiwan, they weren't thrilled with the Chinese mainland, but they didn't really have a problem with them either. And so many of the people in Taiwan actually had good paying jobs in other portions of China. And so they had the complete freedom of the entire Chinese economy to do well economically. Yeah.
Well, this is why there are some who will interpret these results as like, okay, resist China and defend Taiwan. There is a limit to it.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what will the result be interpreted. If you are to put an analyst hat on, that's what it will be the interpretation of it as far as, because basically they are saying we don't want any more tensions, and if the government, it's like what the quote said, if the government cannot get its act together, people's votes reflect that reality, and obviously that's what we see. Now, this results of the local elections in Taiwan is not limited only within the borders of Taiwan. This goes outside the border of Taiwan.
Yes.
Or Asia for that matters. Why? Because first of all, you look at in Asia, they're going to be interpreting that as a good sign. That means the tensions will subside with the assumption if on the rest of the world, they're going to be, when I say the rest of the world is the West, they're going to be looking at it like, okay, did we lose another front of a major conflict?
My suspicion is it's the latter.
The latter, yeah.
Yes. You know, one of the factors that entered into this is, and you know, as I talk to people all the time because I just can't help it.
That's fine.
I'm curious
that's
about
how you learn about human behavior.
Yes.
That's why you specialize in that, right?
And so when I talk to a lot of people every week, and one of the things they say is, well, you know, the problem with China is they have no liberty. They can't talk to each other. There's suppression of information. And then I go, hold it. How many cell phones are unmonitored, really unmonitored, because they don't have the manpower to monitor them all?
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions of these cell phones, and the people in China are probably better informed than the people in the United States.
Yeah.
So these people are talking to each other constantly. And that means the people in Taiwan are talking to Mainland, are talking to each other. And they say, Xi Jinping just made a firm stand at the recent Congress, and saying, Taiwan, you better wake up.
Yeah.
They all know that and heard it.
Usually, in a situation like this, any message emanating from Beijing is not going to be well perceived. This is why it's very important for locals themselves to reach this conclusion.
And it seems
and
that
that's
they are.
what, yeah, the elections, it's a reflection of this reality. And this is where I believe, moving forward, how this is going to sort of now manage the relationships, not only between Taiwan and China, but also between the United States and China. You know, mind you, already Japan made a comment about the upcoming military exercises between China and Russia. Why would Japan be curious or interested about this? Because Japan has a stake in what happens in Taiwan.
Yes.
As we all know, historically speaking. I didn't know that Tsai's background is or ethnicity is from Japan.
I didn't know that
Yeah,
either.
I was surprised to learn that. So,
Oh, wow.
and I intend to address this topic with Dr. Hammond when we invite him for the show again, because his specialty is
Oh, yeah.
China, and I intend to address this because it was very, very surprising to me. Tsai ancestors are from Japan.
Yeah, Dr. Hammond is one of the most interesting people we've ever talked to. Wow, he's really a dynamic speaker, deep knowledge, real understanding what's going on.
Yeah, indeed. So the other aspects to all this has to do with the idea of what will the opposition party do in Taiwan now? No, it's hard to tell at this point because nothing is clear.
You know, even Beijing is sort of holding back on this. The guy's name is Eric Chu, and he's head of this party. And I was surprised to see that there was very little response from Beijing at this point. Could be they're waiting to analyze it and see how this really rolls out.
Yeah, it will be interesting. That's why we wanted to sort of cover this or address this one here, because it's not addressed aggressively in the West.
Right.
Because, as I said, the world now is breathing a sigh of relief. Of course, it's not going to be reported in the West because that's not what the West was expecting. So, and Taiwanese people that is spoke loud and clear regarding this aspect.
You know, one of the things we talked very briefly about is
Yeah.
how many people in Taiwan are looking at what's going on in the Ukraine. We said a little bit about it, but
Yeah, but I do believe, Ross, I do believe they are watching those images and thinking to themselves. You know, we don't give voters credit sometimes. Some people, government, some, not all, I shall not generalize. But voters are smart enough to know and read between the lines.
Yeah.
No, to me personally, and again, it's my personal opinion, the outcome of these elections, local elections, an indication of not only how much Taiwanese were paying attention to what's going on, but also they wanted to avoid similar outcome on their land there.
So there's two factors.
Yeah.
One is they're being economically hurt right now. That got their attention.
Of course,
When
yeah.
you're having more and more trouble feeding your family, that gets your attention.
Yeah.
Then the second thing is what's going on in the Ukraine could be happening here.
Yeah, and they don't want that one, and rightly so. Who wants to have this kind of issues there? Because it's going to become a very troublesome for majority of them over there, and because a conflict, like we always say, a conflict of that magnitude, if the U.S. gets involved with China, it's no small matter. I hope it never happens, because there will be no need for something like this, because it will be no winner. That's where the key. And we don't need, it's about time to live in peace
Right.
at some point, because if this is the vote of the voters, then their will have to be respected. You know, if that's what they want peaceful existence on the Taiwan Strait, then that's what it shall. So.
And it could not be more clear that that's what the people of Taiwan want.
Exactly. For now, we're still gonna be watching, and I'm gonna keep an eye on the presidential elections in 2024. Given I'm in the process of writing about China in a book, so this will deserve almost a chapter by itself in the book, because it's important to understand, because any outcome, it's gonna give you an indication as to where things are headed geopolitically. And we tend to look for the trends as always.
What are the patterns? What are the trends? What are we looking to do? Understand what's going on, pattern and trend-wise.
Yeah.
Be able to predict what's coming based on pushing these patterns forward through time, and then preparing for it. That's as good as it gets.
Exactly. And that's what we're gonna be looking for as to moving forward, what's gonna be happening in Taiwan. So it's interesting time, isn't it?
Oh my God.
I look forward to that. So, any final thoughts, Ross, to add to this before we close it out?
Well, I'm kind of interested to track what the United States and its allies are going to do as they continue to lose power and influence in Asia.
That's an interesting point. I always watch what emanates from Washington, D.C. as far as policies.
Oh, yeah.
As you all know, our foreign policy is fragmented and ill-structured or ill-conceived. We tend to react to events rather than have a strategy, because we don't have any. So I will be interested to see what the next step will be for us.
Well, David, that's only short term. I mean, it's only been going on for 30 years. God.
Indeed. So, well, I hope you'll find this information useful and make sense to you. As always, prepare yourself for a changing world order. Till next time. Bye-bye.